Good morning. Today we will discuss regarding force, pressure and acceleration sensors. So in this, first we will discuss about the load cell, that is measurement of force or pressure. So it is a transducer that is used to convert a force or pressure into an electrical signal. So electrical output is in the order of few millivolts and requires amplification by an instrumentation amplifier for further use. Load cells are also called load transducer or load sensors. So force is measured in terms of deflection or strain of elastic member, that is in case of strain gauge type load cell, and increase in fluid pressure, that is in case of hydraulic type. So types of load cells are: first is hydraulic load cells, second is pneumatic load cells, and third is strain gauge type load cells. So working principle, so this working principle, it is for strain gauge type of load cell. A load cell is made by bonding strain gauges to an elastic material. For accurate measurement, strain gauges are bonded to the position on the elastic material where the impact of stress will be the largest. The strain gauge utilizes this principle and detects a strain by changes in electrical resistance. So the change in electrical resistance, it is measured, and that will be the measurement of force or pressure. So we will discuss regarding the first type of the load cell, that is hydraulic load cells. So you can see the diagram. So there is a piston in a cylinder, and in a cylinder there is a liquid or oil, and over the piston there is a platform that is made where the load it is applied. So when the load, and there is a pressure gauge that is connected to that cylinder, piston and cylinder arrangement. When the force is applied on a platform, so that force it is applied on a piston, and resulting there is a increase in pressure, or the force or pressure that is applied to the liquid or oil, and that the pressure that will indicated by the pressure gauge. So this is a hydraulic type load cell. So the hydraulic load cells are force balance devices measuring weight as a change in pressure of the internal filling fluid. The liquid, usually oil it is used, has a preload pressure. Application of the force to the loading member increases the fluid pressure, which is measured by a pressure transducer or displayed on a pressure gauge dial via Burden tube. So this is regarding the hydraulic load cells. Then second is diaphragm pressure gauge. So diaphragms are thin circular plates broadly used for the measurement of both low and high values of pressure, force or load. So the principle that is based on the deflection. When there is a difference in pressure between the two sides, then the center of the diaphragm becomes displaced. Corrugations in a diaphragm result in a greater sensitivity. So this movement can be monitored by the some form of displacement sensor, that is strain gauge. A specially designed strain gauge is often used, consisting of four strain gauges with the two measuring the strain in a circumferential direction while the two measure strain in a radial direction. The four strain gauges are then connected to form an arms of the Wheatstone bridge. So in order to improve the sensitivity, corrugated diaphragms are designed. So you can see the corrugated diaphragms in a diagram. These are called capsules. The materials used for diaphragms are nickel, phosphor and stainless steel. Now, next type is pneumatic load cells. So, pneumatic load cells also operate on force balance principle. The force is applied to one side of the diaphragm of flexible material and balanced by pneumatic pressure on the other side. The counteracting pressure is proportional to the force and is displayed on a pressure gauge. So you can see the diagram of pneumatic load cell. Next is strain gauge type load cell. Now first of all, regarding the strain gauge, so these gauges are attached to the object by suitable adhesive. As the object is deformed, the foil is deformed, causing its electrical resistance to change. Means when the force it is applied, the resistance of strain gauges that will get changed. And the resistance change is commonly measured using a Wheatstone bridge circuit. So these are the load cell types, that is a button, S type, then the beam type, shear type load cells are shown in this slide. So construction of strain gauge load cell. So you can see there is a cylinder that is made up of steel. At the bottom there is a top view, and at the top the front view it is shown, and the strain gauges that are attached, the position of the strain gauges that is attached to the cylinder, that is shown in a diagram. So you can see 4 strain gauges that are attached. So another type of load cell, that is a deflection or cantilever type load cell or the bending beam load cell. You can see there is a cantilever beam, and over that on the top as well as at the bottom of the beam the strain gauges that are attached, and the change when the force is applied, there is a change in resistance that can be measured with the help of Wheatstone bridge circuit. So the main parts of the strain gauge load cell are, they are a cylinder made up of steel on which 4 identical strain gauge or strain gauges are mounted, and out of 4 strain gauges, 2 of them, that is R1 and R4, are mounted along the direction of the applied load, that is vertical gauges. So you can see the R1 and R4, you can see in a top view, R1 and R4 that is attached in a vertical direction. Then other 2 strain gauges, that is R2 and R3, that is horizontal gauges, are mounted circumferentially at right angles to gauges R1 and R4. So you can see R2 and R3. So on a horizontal direction you can see there is a R2 and R3. So this is not R1, this is R2, and on a right hand side you can see there is a mistake. So this the name of that strain gauge, it is R2, and on a left hand side there is a R3. So these are the horizontal gauges. So it is horizontally mount or it is circumferentially mount. So you can see the position of the 4 strain gauges. So R1 and R4, that is vertically mount in the direction of applied load, and you can see R2 and R3 that is mounted circumferentially, that is perpendicular to R1 and R4, and it is connected to the Wheatstone bridge circuit. So you can see R1, R2, R3 and R4, these are the strain gauges that are mounted in a to the Wheatstone bridge circuit, and N and P are the 2 terminals through you can check the output voltage. So case 1, so study the operation in 2 cases. Case 1, when there is a no load, when force is not applied on a steel cylinder, all the four gauges will have the same resistance. There is a no change in resistance. As the terminals N and P are at the same potential, the Wheatstone bridge is balanced and hence the output voltage will be 0. Case 2. Now the load, that is force to be measured, say the compression force, is applied on a steel cylinder. Due to this, the vertical gauges R1 and R4 will undergo compression and hence there will be decrease in resistance due to the compressive force. At the same time, the horizontal gauges R2 and R3 will undergo tension and there will be an increase in resistance. Thus, when strained, the resistance of various gauges changes. Now the terminal N and P will be at different potential and the change in output voltage due to the applied load or the force becomes a measure of applied load force when calibrated. So that change in resistance, that change in resistance, that is measured because it is measured through Wheatstone bridge, because there is a, due to change in resistance there is a change in voltage, and that change in voltage, it is calibrated in terms of the force or the applied force. Then LVDT type load cell. So you can see the LVDT, there is a primary coil and the two secondary coils, and in between there is a iron core, and it is the pressure that to be measured, it is applied to the iron core or the iron rod. So bellows can be combined with LVDT to give the pressure sensor with the electrical output. When the pressure it is applied, there is a change in position of the iron rod, due to which there is the change in voltages in a primary coil and the secondary coil, and that voltages that can be measured and that is calibrated to show the applied pressure or force. Then advantages of load cells: it is rugged and compact construction, it has no moving parts, it is highly accurate, and wide range of measurement can be used for static and dynamic loading. Disadvantages: the mounting, it is difficult and calibration is a tedious procedure. Now next we will discuss regarding the acceleration sensors. So measuring acceleration and vibration. So vibrometer, an instrument that is used to measure the ground motion in earthquakes and sometimes to measure vibration in machines, are called vibrometer. So you can see the diagram of the vibrometer. Although the basic components are the same as the piezoelectric or strain gauge accelerometers, the mode of operation it is different. So in the vibrometer, the spring is quite soft, and as the housing moves, the mass remains approximately stationary. The relative motion y is large and sensed with the potentiometer. So these devices are used to measure vibrations with frequencies that are high relative to the natural frequency of the spring mass system, which is often less than 1 Hz. The vibrometer effectively measures the displacement of the base rather than the acceleration. Thus, these devices are most sensitive to vibrations with moderate frequencies and fairly large displacement amplitudes. So, we will discuss the seismic transducer. The seismic transducer consists of two basic components. First is spring mass damper element and second is displacement transducer. So the basic principle of seismic or displacement sensing accelerometer: when the spring mass damper system is subjected to acceleration, the mass is displaced and this displacement of the mass is proportional to the acceleration. Hence, a measure of displacement of the mass become a measure of acceleration. So you can see the diagram of linear seismic displacement sensing accelerometer. So you can see on the left hand side there is a electric displacement transducer, that is potentiometer, and on the right hand side there is a damper and spring and the sensing mass system. So main parts of the seismic accelerometer are: a seismic mass is suspended from the housing of the accelerometer through a spring. The damper is connected between the seismic mass and the housing of the accelerometer, and seismic mass is connected to an electric displacement transducer. So construction of seismic transducer. The systematic diagram of the seismic transducer, it is shown in the next slide. The mass is connected by the help of the damper and spring to the housing. The housing frame is connected to the source whose vibrations need to be measured. So you can see the seismic transducer. There is a damper, then housing. Inside the housing there is a displacement transducer and the seismic mass. It is attached between the damper and the spring. So arrangement is kept in such a way so that the position of the mass remains same in the space. Such type of arrangement is kept for causing a relative motion between the housing frame and the mass. The term relative motion means one of the objects remains stationary and the other is in motion concerning the first one. The displacement that occurs between the two is sensed and represented by a transducer. So mode of transducer, displacement mode and the acceleration mode. So type of seismic transducer. So vibrometer and accelerometer are the two types of seismic transducer. First is vibrometer. The vibrometer or low frequency meter is used for measuring the displacement of the body. It also measures the high frequency of the vibrating body. Their frequency range depends on the natural frequency and the damping system. And accelerometer, the accelerometer measures the acceleration of the measuring body. The acceleration shows the total force acting on the object. So this is regarding the force, pressure and acceleration sensors. Thank you.